You're really calling security on me. For accessing my own money, Monica said, her voice calm but razor sharp. The branch manager didn't answer, just gave a tight nod as the guard approached, hand near his belt. Monica didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into her coat, pulled out her phone, and hit record, because what came next would change everything. Monica Ellison didn't look like a woman who built a banking empire. That was the point. The jeans were 2 years old, faded at the knees. Her coat was simple, no label, no tailored fit. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, and her sneakers were scuffed from the walk across the parking lot. She could have been anyone, a teacher on lunch break, a nurse off shift, a mom between errands. That was exactly how she wanted it. As she stepped into the Cedar Rapids branch of Ellison Federal, the scent of printer toner and citrus-scented floor cleaner filled her nose. It was quiet, not empty, just subdued. A few customers sat waiting, scrolling their phones. A toddler squealed near the brochure rack before her mother hushed him gently. Monica's gaze swept the room. The walls were soft gray, the accents warm wood. It was the same modern but approachable design she'd approved for all 73 branches. But that wasn't what she was here to see. This wasn't a surprise inspection. This was something else. She approached the teller counter and took her place in line. The woman in front of her, a white woman in her early 60s, was greeted with a wide smile and a cheerful, "Good afternoon, Mrs. Donnelly. How can I help you today?" Monica watched, taking mental notes. The interaction was smooth. No forms, no hesitation, just conversation and a "let me pull that up for you." When it was Monica's turn, the change in energy was subtle but unmistakable. The teller, young, early 20s, pale skin, tightly pulled back hair. Name tag reading, Kelsey glanced up and gave a short, polite nod. No smile, no greeting, just a quick once-over, her eyes catching on the worn collar of Monica's coat before returning to her computer screen. Monica stepped forward. "Hi," she said evenly. "I'd like to make a withdrawal." Kelsey didn't look up. "You'll need to fill this out," she replied, sliding a clipboard across the counter. The form was standard: name, account number, withdrawal amount. Monica took the clipboard and filled it out without hesitation. $6,000, not a massive amount. Enough to pay for an emergency home repair or cover rent for a couple of months. Enough to get noticed, but not enough to raise flags. She handed the form back. That was when Kelsey finally looked her in the eye. Just for a second. Then her gaze dropped to the form. Her eyebrows twitched. Monica saw it, the flicker of doubt, the second-guessing. Kelsey glanced at the ID, back at Monica, and then without a word turned and disappeared through a door labeled Branch Manager. Monica exhaled slowly. She had expected scrutiny. She had prepared for it. But still there was a sinking feeling in her stomach that she hadn't quite shaken. She leaned lightly on the counter and glanced around. The woman who had been helped before her was already seated and sipping complimentary coffee. Another man, dressed in business casual, stepped up to a different window and was met with cheerful efficiency. Monica turned back to the counter. 5 minutes passed, then 6. Finally, the door opened. Out stepped a man in his early 50s, stocky build, balding, rimless glasses. His navy blazer was slightly wrinkled and his name tag read, Rick Delaney, Branch Manager. He smiled as he approached, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. Monica knew it well. She had seen it in boardrooms and on sales floors. It was the kind of smile that said, "I've already made a judgment. Now I'm just trying to confirm it." "Good afternoon, ma'am," Rick said, placing her ID gently on the counter, but not sliding it back. "I understand you're trying to make a withdrawal today," Monica nodded. "That's right. $6,000. Rick glanced at the form, then at her ID, then back to her. "And you are—" He trailed off, looking at the name again. "Monica Ellison," she said. "I've had an account here since the branch opened." Rick gave a slow, deliberate nod. "And what line of work are you in?" "Miss Ellison," Monica paused. That question wasn't necessary. It wasn't standard. She had filled out the form, provided ID, given account details. "I'm in finance," she said simply. Rick tilted his head slightly. "Finance." She met his eyes. "Banking." There was a pause, just long enough for the temperature in the room to shift. Rick didn't blink. "I see. And this is a personal account." "Not business," Monica's jaw tightened slightly. "It's personal. That's what the form says." Rick gave another long nod, as if he were thinking very hard about something complicated. He glanced at Kelsey, who had reappeared behind the counter, standing silently, hands clasped. Then back to Monica. Unfortunately, he said, placing her ID down without sliding it toward her, we're going to need to verify a few things before we can proceed. Monica blinked slowly. What exactly do you need to verify? Rick clasped his hands together. Well, large cash withdrawals require additional precautions. We'll need to confirm some account activity. Could you tell me your most recent deposit? Monica's lips parted slightly in disbelief. That wasn't policy. That wasn't even close. No, she said evenly. I don't have that number memorized. But you do. It's in my account file, which you have access to. Rick gave a tight smile. We just want to make sure everything matches up. Monica stared at him. The lobby wasn't silent, but the noise had changed, quieter now, heavier. People were sensing tension. No one was making eye contact. Is there a problem with my identification, she asked. No, Rick said quickly. It's just that we sometimes get fraudulent IDs. Monica tilted her head. So you're treating me like a fraud? Rick raised a hand as if to calm her. Not at all. Just being cautious. Monica let out a short breath. If I were a man in a tailored suit asking for the same thing, would you be asking me these questions? That stopped him, just for a moment. His face flickered. Then the polite mask came back. This isn't about appearances, Ms. Ellison. It's about policy. Monica didn't look away. You're misapplying policy to avoid doing your job. That's not security. That's profiling. Rick didn't respond. Instead, he reached under the counter and pressed a small button. Monica didn't have to guess. She already knew. Seconds later, a tall security guard in uniform, Trent, stepped out from a side office. His eyes scanned the lobby and landed on Monica. Rick spoke softly. We're just taking standard precautions. Monica turned toward Trent and said calmly, Are you here to help me access my money or to escort me out? Trent hesitated, glancing back at Rick. No one said anything. No one moved. Monica's hands didn't shake as she pulled her phone from her coat pocket. She tapped the camera app, hit record, and raised it slowly. Rick stiffened. Ms. Ellison, just documenting this, she said. You're refusing to allow me to withdraw from my own account, despite valid identification, and no cause for concern. She panned slightly toward Trent. And security was called because... The guard looked deeply uncomfortable. Kelsey shifted behind the counter. The room was silent now. Rick's jaw tightened. Monica lowered the phone slightly. I think it's time you knew who you're talking to, she said. She reached across the counter and picked up her ID, flipping it over and tapping the printed name. Monica Ellison, founder, president of this bank. The silence was absolute. Rick froze. Kelsey turned white. Trent's eyes widened. Monica's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I built this institution. I approved this branch. I signed your hiring authorization. And today I walked in as a customer to see how people like me are treated when no one's watching. She paused, letting the moment land. Now I know. Rick's mouth opened. Ms. Ellison, I sincerely apologize, don't she said coldly. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. Her voice was even controlled. Expect a call from corporate. You'll explain what happened today in detail. Trent took a step back. Kelsey looked like she wanted to disappear. Monica tucked her phone away. You should all ask yourselves this, she said, turning to leave. If I weren't the CEO, how far would you have gone? She didn't wait for an answer. The sound of her footsteps echoed on the tile as she pushed open the glass doors and walked out into the crisp Iowa air. Behind her, the branch was frozen in silence. Rick Delaney's mouth was still half open when Monica Ellison stepped back from the counter, her ID firm in hand, the words still echoing across the stunned silence of the lobby founder. President of this bank. For a split second, no one moved. Kelsey stood frozen behind the teller station, knuckles pale against the edge of the counter. Trent, the security guard, shifted his weight subtly, eyes darting to Rick, as if silently asking if he'd just made the worst professional miscalculation of his career. Monica didn't flinch. She wasn't finished. She had walked into this branch prepared to be tested. She just hadn't expected them to fail this badly. Her voice even now was calm, measured. Let's keep going, she said, tapping her phone screen. The recording's still rolling. And I'd love to make sure we document everything clearly. Rick's face drained of color. Ms. Ellison, he stammered the words fumbling from his mouth like they were trying to outrun regret. I assure you we meant no disrespect. This was just protocol. Monica interrupted, raising an eyebrow. Because if that's the case, I'm going to need you to explain exactly which policy covers calling in security for a verified customer requesting a mid-sized withdrawal. Trent took a step back, instinctively distancing himself from the mess. Monica turned to him without breaking stride. Trent, is it? Tell me something. When you were called over here, what exactly were you told? Trent swallowed visibly. Just that there was a customer causing a disruption, that I should stand by. Monica tilted her head slightly. And did you see any disruption? Trent's silence said everything. Monica turned the phone slightly to capture him in frame. Just for the record, she said, her tone crisp. Was I raising my voice? Was I being aggressive? No, ma'am, Trent said quietly. Not at all. Monica nodded. Thank you. She pivoted smoothly back to Rick. So let's walk through what happened. I walked in. I filled out a withdrawal form. I provided my ID. You didn't run the account. You didn't look at the transaction history. Instead, you asked me for employment verification and deposit information that isn't required for this type of withdrawal. And then you escalated. You called in security. Am I missing anything? Rick's hands gripped the edge of the counter like he needed the marble to anchor him. Ms. Ellison. I know, don't apologize again. You've used up that currency, Monica said sharply. What I want is transparency. Is this how you treat all customers who don't fit your idea of what a real client looks like? Behind them, the lobby had gone eerily still. One man who'd been quietly filling out a form near the waiting chairs set down his pen and folded his arms. A woman clutching a checkbook whispered something to her teenage daughter, and both stared toward the counter. Kelsey remained silent, eyes locked on the screen in front of her, as if hoping the register would swallow her whole. Monica didn't need to raise her voice to command the room. Every word landed like a verdict. Let me guess, she said, tone like velvet over steel. If I walked in here in heels and a silk blouse instead of jeans and sneakers, you'd have treated me differently. You might have smiled, asked how my day was going, verified my ID, processed the withdrawal, and sent me on my way in under 3 minutes. Rick didn't respond. He didn't have to. His silence was the loudest confession. Monica took a slow breath and dropped the volume of her voice, not for weakness, but for precision. You didn't just deny me service. You denied me dignity. You made a judgment based on what you saw and decided I didn't belong here. That's not banking, Mr. Delaney. That's bias. That's a liability. The word hung there heavy with implication. Monica tapped her phone once more and stopped the recording. I have everything I need, she said. And unless you'd like this to go viral before lunchtime, I suggest you step aside while I access my account like any customer should be able to. But Rick didn't move. He looked down. He looked embarrassed. But still he didn't move. Ms. Ellison, he began slowly, voice now fragile. I deeply regret how this unfolded. Please let me make this right. I'll process the withdrawal personally. Monica shook her head once. Too late. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a slim black card holder, sliding a business card across the counter with measured control. You'll call that number. That's my executive assistant. You'll schedule a meeting with our internal ethics and compliance team, and you'll explain on the record exactly what happened here today. Who was involved? What was said? Why policy was twisted into something it was never meant to be? You'll do that before close of business today. Or I'll do it for you. Rick's hand trembled as he picked up the card. Trent stepped back another pace. Monica turned toward Kelsey for the first time since the incident began. And you, she said quietly. Kelsey looked up, startled. Yes, ma'am. You had everything in front of you, a completed form, a valid ID, a clean transaction, but you chose suspicion over service. That decision has consequences. Kelsey's throat moved as she swallowed. I didn't mean, I know you didn't mean to offend me, Monica interrupted. You didn't even mean to think. That's the problem. She paused. You were following instinct, not training, and that instinct. That's what we're going to change. Kelsey's eyes dropped again, this time not to avoid confrontation, but from something else. Shame. Quiet, rising shame. Monica scanned the room one last time, To the rest of you, she said clearly, raising her voice slightly so it carried, you deserve better. Every one of you. This branch, it was built with your trust in mind. That trust was broken today, but it won't stay that way. The customers who had been pretending not to listen now openly stared. One woman nodded. Another man muttered, "Damn," right under his breath. Monica turned and walked toward the doors, her stride steady, her chin lifted. The silence behind her wasn't just awkward anymore. It was reverent. The kind of silence that comes when something undeniable has just happened. She didn't pause. She didn't look back. But she knew everything had changed. By the time her sneakers met the parking lot pavement, Monica had already dialed her assistant. "Paula," she said calmly, "I need a full compliance team meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Everyone, no exceptions, and get me the internal reports for the Cedar Rapids branch. Pull footage if you can. I want to know how deep this goes." "Understood," Paula said without hesitation. "Anything else?" "Yes," Monica said, unlocking her car. "Have HR draft a formal notice for Rick Delaney, pending review, and flag the teller Kelsey. She's getting mandatory retraining, but I want it done under supervision. No rubber stamps." "Got it," Paula replied. Monica slid into the driver's seat and exhaled, not out of exhaustion, but out of certainty. She hadn't come for revenge. She came for clarity, and she got it. That branch would never be the same. Neither would her bank. And most importantly, neither would the culture that had allowed a founder to be treated like an intruder in her own house. Not anymore. Not on her watch. Monica didn't sleep much that night. Not out of anger, though there had been a sharp edge to her thoughts as she replayed the events in her mind, but out of focus. She had seen what she needed to see. The face of complacency, the voice of institutional bias, and the way both had tried to cloak themselves in policy. At 7:00 a.m., she stood at the glass wall of her downtown Chicago office, black coffee, in one hand, the morning fog curling around the skyline behind her. Her phone buzzed. "You have everyone for 9 a.m., Paula said on the other end. "All regional VPs, compliance, HR, risk assessment, and corporate affairs. The call-in lines are set, and I flagged the Cedar Rapids footage pulled from 3 angles." Monica nodded, even though no one could see her. "Good. Get me the latest branch-level customer satisfaction data sorted by demographics and complaint tags. I want to know how often this happens when I'm not in the room." "Already in your inbox," Paula replied. "And Rick Delaney placed on administrative leave as of 8:00 a.m. per HR protocol. He was notified 20 minutes ago." Monica took a slow sip of her coffee. "Thank you." The line went quiet. Monica turned back to her desk where her laptop sat open beside the card she'd retrieved the day before. The one she'd slid across the counter to Rick. The one that now felt like a verdict. At 9:00 sharp, the virtual meeting began. Dozens of faces blinked onto the screen. Some were curious. Some were concerned. A few looked nervous. Monica didn't waste time. "Yesterday," she began, "I visited our Cedar Rapids branch unannounced. I requested a withdrawal from my personal account. I presented ID. The interaction that followed was unacceptable, and it exposed a problem I believe goes far beyond one branch." The room was silent. She clicked a file. The video played. The footage from her phone synced side by side with security camera angles. The screen showed the moment she stepped up. The cold reception, the excessive questioning, the silent but pointed call for security, the tightening in her voice as she recorded. The revelation, the expressions on Rick's face, Kelsey's, the customers watching. She let it run for 3 full minutes before pausing the screen on Rick's pale face as she announced who she was. That, Monica said plainly, is what it looks like when trust breaks. No one spoke. Monica continued. "Our mission at Ellison Federal has never been about numbers. It's been about dignity, community, equity. But those are just words unless our people live them, especially when no one's watching. Yesterday they failed." She leaned slightly forward. "Which means I failed, because if our culture allowed that to happen, then we haven't gone far enough. That ends today." Over the next hour, Monica laid out a sweeping plan. First, mandatory bias and inclusion training across all 73 branches, not online, not passive, but in-person and scenario-based, led by certified trainers with real-world experience. No one exempt, not even senior leadership. Second, the internal reporting system was being overhauled. Anonymous customer feedback channels were being implemented at every branch, digital and physical. Issues flagged for possible discrimination would be routed directly to a new equity oversight division, reporting only to the Office of the President. Third, a full audit of hiring and promotion practices. Monica made it clear, we're not going to just fix behavior. We're going to examine the conditions that allow it to thrive. And finally, she ended with the personnel decisions. Rick Delaney terminated effective immediately. Kelsey retained but subject to a full retraining program under direct supervision with progress evaluations tied to customer service metrics. Some VPs shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Monica didn't waver. This is not about scapegoats, she said. This is about transformation. The meeting ended with one final reminder. If this can happen to me, the founder, then imagine how easily it happens to someone without power, without title, without a voice in the room. That's the customer we're rebuilding this bank for. The ripples move fast. Within 48 hours, word of the incident spread through internal channels. Employees talked. Most supported the change, many even welcomed it. A few quietly didn't, but they were no longer the majority. Customer feedback began to pour in. People noticed. From Omaha to Minneapolis, small but powerful stories surfaced. A woman in Kansas City who'd been overlooked for months now received follow-up calls. A single father in Des Moines said a teller apologized for interrupting him after assuming his check wasn't legitimate. The shift was real. Monica watched it unfold from her office, not with pride, but with resolve. She didn't need credit. She needed results. One Friday afternoon, 2 weeks after the incident, she returned to Cedar Rapids. This time, she didn't walk in through the lobby. She came through the back, announced with a small team of compliance and HR reps. Kelsey stood behind the counter, visibly tense but alert. Her posture improved, her voice warmer. Monica nodded to her as she walked past. Kelsey nodded back. Not out of fear, but out of acknowledgement. Trent, the security guard, saw her too. He approached discreetly. "Ma'am," he said, "I just wanted to say, I've been thinking about that day. I see it differently now. Thank you for how you handled it." Monica met his gaze. "Thank you for recognizing it. That's how change starts." She didn't stay long, just enough to sit with the new branch manager, a black woman in her 30s named Patrice, promoted from within. They talked briefly. Monica listened more than she spoke. When she stood to leave, she glanced one more time at the lobby. Different energy, different culture. The walls were the same, the floor was the same. But the atmosphere, that was different. On her way out, an elderly customer caught her arm gently. "You the lady who owns this place?" Monica smiled. "I am." Well, the woman said, "Whatever you did, it worked. They listen now. They see us." Monica nodded. That was all she needed. Later that evening, back in Chicago, Monica opened her office safe and placed the printed transcript of the incident inside beside a stack of her original business plans from 20 years ago. Not as a warning, as a reminder. Leadership wasn't about prestige. It was about protecting the values you claimed to stand for, even when it was uncomfortable. Especially when it was uncomfortable. And trust wasn't built in mission statements or marketing campaigns. It was built in moments like that. Moments when someone speaks up, stands firm, and refuses to let things slide just because it's easier to look away. Monica sat back in her chair, eyes on the skyline. Her bank had changed, but more importantly, it would keep changing. Because the moment you stop examining your own culture is the moment you start failing the people who depend on it most. And for Monica Ellison, failure had never been an option. What happened inside that quiet branch in Cedar Rapids wasn't just a mishandled transaction. It was a reminder of something far more profound. The moment Monica Ellison, founder of the very bank she entered, was treated like a suspicious outsider simply because she didn't look the part. A hidden truth surfaced. Bias doesn't always announce itself loudly, but it always leaves a mark. The lesson here is simple but urgent. Professionalism, fairness, and respect should never depend on someone's appearance, age, attire, or perceived status. Every person who walks into a place of service deserves dignity. The moment we allow assumptions to replace compassion or policy to become a shield for prejudice, we fail not just as individuals, but as institutions. Monica could have stormed out. She could have retaliated in anger. But instead, she chose accountability. She chose to expose the culture that had quietly allowed unfair treatment to go unchecked. And more importantly, she used her power to change it, not just for herself, but for everyone who would walk into that bank afterward. To our viewers here at US Instructive Stories, we hope this story reminds you of the power of observation, of asking hard questions, and of standing your ground when something feels wrong. Whether you're a leader or a customer, a manager or a new hire, your voice matters. If you see something that doesn't sit right, speak up. Push for change. Don't wait for someone else to fix it. Be the reason the next person is treated with fairness and respect. And if you've ever experienced something like what Monica faced, silently judged, questioned, without cause, or made to feel like you didn't belong, we want you to know you're not alone. What happened to you wasn't right, and it shouldn't be ignored. Every act of fairness, every demand for better treatment, every uncomfortable truth that gets brought into the light, it adds up. It builds a world where respect isn't conditional. It builds trust. From all of us at US Instructive Stories, thank you for listening, reflecting, and standing with us in these stories that matter. We tell them not just to reveal injustice, but to inspire change. If this story moved you, please consider sharing it. And if you've got your own experience, your own Monica moment, we'd love to hear it. Let's keep the conversation going, because real change begins with awareness, and it's fueled by all of us refusing to accept anything less than dignity. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next story.